So, after seeing this, I can't wait for the sequel. Studio 777. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to my channel. Today we're talking about a newer release, Studio 666. Before we begin, let me know in the comments what your thoughts on this movie were, if you already saw it, or if you were planning on seeing it, and make sure to hit that thumbs up button if you like these reviews, as it helps me out immensely by getting my content out there. And if you're new here, I hope you consider hitting that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with reviews of new releases, older films, hidden gems, and so much more on a near daily basis. But let's not waste any more time and let's talk about Studio 666. This stars the legendary rock band the Foo Fighters, who move into an Encino mansion steeped in grisly rock and roll history to record their much anticipated 10th album. This is directed by B.J. McDonnell, and as stated, this sees the Foo Fighters in what you can probably describe as their pick of destiny, the ridiculous music-centered comedy starring Tenacious D, which Dave Grohl himself actually appeared in. It's a goofy horror comedy that sees the band play exaggerated versions of themselves. You have Dave Grohl as the fast-talking but borderline obsessive mastermind of the group, Rami Jaffe is mostly interested in sex, Chris Shiflett is overly combative with Grohl and makes these very crude jokes, and so on, with everyone fitting some sort of caricature. Now, beyond Grohl, the band hasn't really delved too much into the acting world, and there are times where they're just trying to have a pretty standard conversation where that shows a bit, with the occasional clunky line delivery. But by having the band play things more like caricatures and giving them these generally over-the-top personalities, that helps mask a lot of that, because when they go big with their exchanges, whether playing into the silliness or a lot of screaming and yelling at one another, that's when they're at their most fun. Some of the humor in some of these exchanges doesn't always land, like there's a bit early on with their manager played by Jeff Garlin where they try insulting each other and it goes on for way too long with the way they use all these colorful metaphors. But for the most part, I thought they were fine, especially for a group that really hasn't had that much screen presence prior to this. There were even times as the film gets deeper and deeper into its supernatural elements where the vibe felt like we were in a considerably more adult version of Scooby-Doo. From the way everyone carried themselves and the way they're trying to solve how to get rid of these ghostly beings, it felt very much in that vein, and I actually thought that was a nice touch. Now, there's definitely a novelty feel to this movie, with the big draw obviously being just seeing the band lead a big studio project. And part of one's enjoyment of this will partially stem from their liking of the band themselves. Like, not all fans of the Foo Fighters are guaranteed to enjoy this, but part of me felt that I personally wouldn't have appreciated this as much if I didn't like the Foo Fighters as a band already. And I'm sure others will feel the same. There are some self-referential moments in there regarding their own musical catalog, and there are also a few moments that do reference the music industry in general. Like, my favorite throwaway line is whenever they do a group high five and Grohl refers it as the Pearl Jam 10 high five, because of the cover of that band's album of the same name. But even beyond the novelty of seeing the band, there are some noteworthy appearances from other actors and comedians, as well as other musicians. As I said, Jeff Garlin has probably the biggest role as the band's manager, but you also have Whitney Cummings, Jenna Ortega, and Will Forte in small roles. Plus, you even have Kerry King from Slayer playing one of the band's techs, which is a really niche cameo, if you ask me, but that was cool to see among a few other surprises. And what was also great to see is that this works pretty well as a horror movie. Like, I wouldn't call this the most original or the scariest horror movie out there, as it's a pretty simple possession plot, but it was shot well. When it gets into the supernatural elements, I thought the visions and nightmares the characters experience were done well enough, and even the jump scares weren't all that bad. Now, I'm normally not big on jump scares in horror movies. I find them to be pretty cheap, but the way they worked here was better than I expected, because in most horror movies, jump scares you can always see coming, almost all the time, where it gets completely silent for a moment before something pops out at you. Here though, the way a lot of them played would be in the middle of a conversation, or sometimes even in bright daylight. The mood was never set so that it clearly teed things up for a jump scare, which I thought was a nice touch. Now, I haven't suddenly warmed up to them in general or anything, but I thought they were better than normal here. Though the main thing is, this movie is gory as anything. Like, this does not hold back, and you see that from the very first kill scene. When something or someone attacks here, this movie gets brutal. There were a few times I even squirmed a bit in my seat. Like, when I saw how brutal the first kill scene was, I was thrown off guard a bit, I'm not gonna lie. But anyone who likes gore in their horror movies certainly won't be disappointed here, because this will go all out. Some of these scares get creative and add a lot to the fun, and elevates this a bit beyond just being a big fluff piece for the band. So the only other big thing I'd say about this as a criticism is the fact that it definitely feels a little too long. This is an hour and 48 minutes taking place mostly in this one house, and you can tell there's a little bit of ambition to it. The first half is meant to showcase the band kind of losing it as Dave's obsessive attempts to get this album finished takes its toll on them, and then the second half goes full force with the supernatural stuff. And I think it just needed to tighten things up and condense a lot of that first half so that it gets into the supernatural stuff quicker. There was a point where you feel like you're stuck in that house just as long as the band. Like, I looked at my watch at one point at what I thought was the hour mark, knowing it was an hour and 48 minutes, and I realized it was only like the 40-minute mark, and we still hadn't gotten to anything supernatural yet. So it definitely needed to condense a few things so that it got to the point quicker, especially as, like I said, not every attempt at humor necessarily lands the best here, nor are any of the dramatic beats anything that reinvents the wheel. But still, that didn't hinder my overall enjoyment of the film. I still had a good time with it. I think it's going to go down as a fun little cult film, especially by fans of the band as well as horror fans, but I think had it cut things down by about 20 minutes or so, it would have been considerably better. While Studio 666 didn't quite reach the levels of greatness I was hoping for, it's still a fun time. Its attempts at humor might not always land, and it's not the most original story out there, but it's got a great self-deprecating tone about it, great cameos, a lot of brutal moments of gore, and a fun bunch of performances by the Foo Fighters themselves. If you're a fan of the band or bloodier horror movies, make sure to check this out, as I'm sure this will reach cult status by both audiences. Studio 666 gets a 7 out of 10. So let me know, did you see Studio 666, or are you planning to see it, and what were your thoughts? Did you find it funny? Do you want to see more horror comedies in this vein? Let me know in the comments below so we can discuss. Also, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and share it, and for more movie reviews and film discussion, please make sure to hit that subscribe button to stay updated. Thanks for watching everyone, and keep having fun with film.